Welcome to the Culture Docent with Dr. Carr, where real stories spark real change. Together, we'll break down culture, leadership, and inclusion and rebuild them into something transformative. This is where conversations become movements. This is the Culture Docent.
Right. Hey, y'all. This is Dr. Carr, the culture docent, here to help you navigate and curate the experiences you want to have. Welcome to today's episode. Listen to their stories. Y'all know I talk about inclusive leadership a lot. And one of the defining characteristics of this leadership type is this concept of cultural competency, or some people might call it cultural intelligence. So today I'm joined by JaVe Bonner, narrative medicine expert and founder of GeneHouse. JaVe, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first, thank you for having me. I am JaVe, and I am a narrative medicine expert. I think we're going to get a little bit more into exactly what that is a little bit later. But I'm also the founder of GeneHouse. GeneHouse is a mobile app that allows Black people to upload family health history via open voice and open notes, which we'll also get into more a little bit later. But yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
Awesome. Yes, I'm very excited about this. So first, we're going to start with some shared definitions, of course, so we're all on the same page. I love to give y'all a little lesson every time anyway, but cultural competency is really just this understanding of cultural similarities and differences while also recognizing how your own culture impacts your personal worldview, as well as some of, how cultural stereotypes can influence your expectations of others. So, when I was coaching executive clients on the 6 signature traits of inclusive leadership, that's a framework developed and crafted by Deloitte. But I would often have to explain that culture includes so much more than just race and ethnicity, right? That's an aspect of it, but that could be regional differences. So northern versus southern versus Midwestern, right? There's different cultures there. Global South versus, the West, right? Is there. There's going to be industry differences where you're thinking about corporate versus government versus nonprofit. Those are very different industries. There's going to be different types of cultures in those spaces, even team differences. So within the same organization. So if you think about accounting, I'm going to stereotype, even though I just said I wasn't going to, but accounting can be very, traditionally very staunch and very, I won't use uptight, but it's a little bit more business-like versus you may have your IT people that are, they get to wear jeans every day, right?
Yep.
Or they're getting to work somewhere else every day, just working from remote, right? And so those are different types of cultures within those same teams within an organization, but all of those are important. All of those are something that you need to recognize if you want to be a culturally competent leader. And that's really just a non-negotiable requirement, right? If you want to be an effective leader, you need to recognize that you need to be culturally competent. And it really requires that you take an active interest in learning about other cultures, seeking out opportunities to experience culturally diverse environments, even thinking about local context, like how politics or something may inform ways of working. I always think about questions that as a culturally competent leader, you should be asking can we move our conference to June instead of April? Every April, our folks in this region tend to have local elections. We want people to be able to participate. So let's move this conference so that we can encourage that participation. Or how can we adjust our meeting schedule during Ramadan to ensure that everyone can actually participate? Because there are times during Ramadan where things are changing. People can't always meet at the same times. So let's adjust, right? So
Right.
also being able to just change your style appropriately and use appropriate verbal and nonverbal behaviors.
Uh-huh.
Biggest example of this is that I am a hugger.
Yes.
If you have met, if I've never met you, it doesn't matter. I'm prepared to just lean in, in that initial.
Uh,
JaVe knows she's Southern too. My family's from Alabama, so it's a very Southern thing. It's a very Black cultural thing. I went to an HBCU,
yes.
and so that's how we greet each other, right? Agnostic of level. It's very much we're gonna hug, but not everyone is comfortable with that, right? And
Right.
so we have to start. I had to start asking for permission or reading body language to say it okay, they may not want that or religious differences. So, in a lot of communities from our Muslim counterparts, that's not appropriate, right? To reach in and hug someone in
Right.
certain contexts. And especially not as I'm not a family member, I'm not related to them. And so having to be mindful of that's that cultural competency that I'm referring to and that I think that all leaders should incorporate into their own leadership practices. And I would say, what brings us here today and most important part of understanding cultural competency is this looking at through this lens of how someone's story adds context to their individual approach. So being a culturally competent leader is not only acknowledging this context, but seeking it out, right? And so I was really excited to learn about narrative medicine because that really just stood out to me as like that epitome of storytelling and for cultural competency purposes, and really just a way to inform someone's leadership practice. And so I'm looking forward to you telling us, well, one, what narrative medicine is, and then how your experience in this field has really helped you personally become a better leader.
So, narrative medicine, I would say, like the big definition, takes an interdisciplinary approach to bringing the patient back into the healthcare space. I would say the patient narrative is something that's very important to the healthcare journey, and I don't think that it's highlighted enough. Whether it be through storytelling, through art, through dance, through whatever your mode of communication is. Narrative medicine gives you the opportunity to communicate in that way. Right now, when you go to the doctor and you see the forms, and it's like, who in your family, or not even who in your family, but did anyone in your family have heart disease? Yes or no? That is a very short to the point question, but medicine isn't a place where, ironically, yes, you do want to get to the point. You want to get to the root of the illness, but you don't want to just get straight to the point when there's so much nuance in humans. And I think that narrative medicine, gives us a space to say, okay, this person is different. What, we're all different, but this person, what is the difference? Let's give someone the time and the space to, whether it be talk about what the issue is, or whether it be, draw, a photo, or draw a picture of it, or take photos of it. Whatever the mode is, we give people the space to express themselves in that manner. And, not just with, how they feel about their illness or their relationship to their illness, but also their symptoms. I often think about children and how, like, little kids, we always say, oh, they can't communicate their illness. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that they don't communicate their illness in a way that we not even understand, but in a way that we acknowledge. Body language means a lot. Like I said, you give a kid some crayons and a piece of paper and say, draw how you're feeling today. And if you give them a little bit of time, you might be amazed at what you see on that paper. And you might learn so much about that little kid and how they're feeling and what the illness is, and, how they're feeling about having this illness, how they're feeling about, if they want to participate in their care plan. Part of being, getting well is participating and knowing that, okay, these are the steps I need to take in my journey. And you need to buy into that, right? Like, you need to trust your clinicians, you need to trust yourself. And part of being able to trust yourself is knowing that the people around you will trust what you have to say as well. And that comes through narrative medicine, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that. And as a parent myself, yes, please listen to your kids, y'all. It doesn't matter the age. And actually, little kids are so literal. So when they're describing something and you're just like, yes, that is that, right? Like my son, what did he say? Oh, when he was trying to describe the ceiling, he called it the top wall. And I was like, this is the wall on the top. You are absolutely right about that. But like you said, like we often invalidate, and I think that that happens not just with children, right? Like that happens in a lot of communities, especially when English isn't their first language and you're communicating, see where you need to speak that language, or if you have trouble communicating in general, right? Like you may have a disability that there's speech impairment, and so you're having to find a way to really share something that's critical to your care, right? And want to be a participant in your care, like you said. And that's also part of your story, right? And so I think that that's a lesson for us as leaders, is being able to keep that in mind and to recognize, like, if we take a little bit more time, if we are patient, and if we're looking and validating those cues, like we'll learn a lot, things that we didn't realize that we would, learn in that capacity. And so I also feel like, hearing people tell their stories makes us better storytellers, right? But I've also been in situations where, the storytelling really becomes an act of advocacy for myself, because I don't feel like people are listening to me or validating or hearing my story. So I would say, what have you seen as some of the drawbacks or consequences when people aren't culturally competent or don't value storytelling when attempting to help other people?
So when people don't value the storytelling, or just a difference in the communication, there's so many breakdowns. Like, nothing gets done. The short of it is, nothing gets done. You think you may be communicating, or you think that you may be making progress on whatever it is. And obviously in the healthcare space, it's the care plan. But you have to care to communicate, to want to communicate with whoever you're speaking with. And not even just for your own, understanding, right? Like, so what's going on, but just because it's respect. the patient can feel and sense when the person they're talking to or communicating with is either doesn't really care or doesn't understand, isn't taking the steps to try to understand. All of that is like so clear. One of the examples I think about often is when you're in a doctor's office and the doctor gets up and is like by the door, subconsciously that sends a message to you that like they're ready to go.
Yeah, this is
So,
over with.
this is done,
Good day to you.
wrap it up. So it's just, you don't want to send that message. And I get it, right? Clinicians are on time crunches, which is the perils of capitalism, right? That's a whole nother conversation. The, the point of the matter is, the patient, for whatever, even if it's that 15 minutes that you have with that patient, I want every minute. I need every second. And I need you to be in tune with me every second.
Yeah.
And I think that, being able to recognize, oh, something as small as, oh, this person, they have a bad history with medicine. Maybe they're not unable to keep it down, something like that. Or maybe they've had, their own histories with, with drug abuse or whatever have you, right? People have histories. Imagine you giving someone a care plan and it's like, I need you to take these 6 pills 3 times a day, and you just send them on their way. And you didn't inquire about how does this make you feel? Even if you don't ask that, but what is, do you have any history? And not even with history with drug abuse, but like, what is your relationship with medicine?
Do you
Period,
remember to
right?
take your pills on time?
Listen,
Because I know.
that simple question. Do you need, like something, right? Do you remember to take your pills? Like you said, do you need a reminder? Those little questions can just make or break the plan, right? And I'm not saying that, you're going to go home and not take your medicine just in defiance of your doctor, but just knowing that like, oh, they actually cared about how this experience is going to go for me. The patient experience is so much of the pie. And I think that it's just not, we don't pay attention to it. So to answer your question, when there's like a lack of cultural competency, the health equity gap just broadens. It just gets wider and wider. Yeah, people don't get the care they need. They don't get the care in the clinical sense, but also the care just like the human sense, right? And it's hard, like I said, for them to buy into their care plan, and it's just bad for everybody around. And it's like I ask people if you don't, because like I said, there's a difference in, not knowing and also knowing that you don't understand this and be like, Dad, I don't get it. And then being like, I don't care to get it. What type of person I want to, you ask yourself, what type of person are you that you don't care to communicate with the people that you claim to help? What does help look like to you?
Yeah.
Like, I really think that matters. Yeah.
Yeah. I know we're talking about, in the context of narrative medicine and clinic care, but y'all, this is applicable to any type of industry, right? Like if you do not care enough to learn about someone's history, to learn about the context that they bring, you are not setting them up for success. You're not going to be able to match them to the right types of opportunities. You're not going to be able to give them the right types of resources. You're not going to be able to identify, their strengths, right? To say like, I recommend that Dr. Carr goes to this conference. How would you know that? Because you're not listening, and you didn't care to ask, right? You didn't think that all of those things are important to the context that I bring to this situation of, oh, well, I did go to an HBCU, so sending me to a conference that has little to no HBCU presence is going to be important so that we can establish that presence, right? As opposed to sending someone, it's like, oh, they've never been to an HBCU either. Let's send them on, right? So they're not be able to pick up on that. And that's just really important. And again, in situations like this, when we're thinking about it in this medicine and clinical care context, people are not receiving the care that they need, and that's dangerous and really unfortunate because we do see that quite often. And so hopefully, you leaders out there are getting this and understanding the importance of that cultural competency and helping us bridge that gap, right? So
Help me help you.
right, help us help you today.
Right.
That's what we're here for. So I know that within GeneHouse, you've done some Black Health Dictionary words of the week. And so we're going to give y'all the link so that you can see some of that, because that's been really helpful for me as well. Just being able to just break down some of the phrases and words that have been passed down in our own storytelling and cultural just histories that we use all the time. And then just being able to help those that want to give us care, right? Like providing context on both ends so we can understand what that actually means. But how would you how do you suggest leaders navigate these communication barriers to be able to more effectively identify gaps and then provide, necessary resources that will assist patients, clients, customers, whomever, right? Just assist the people.
I think the best leaders are leaders who can learn from the people that they're supposed to be leading. So if there is a barrier, ask the person who's on the other end of that barrier how they, if one, if they recognize the barrier, right? Like if they feel like there's some tension there, whether it be intentional tension or if it's just a miscommunication, right? But then, once it's established, okay, there's a breakdown here. How can we fix it? Not how can I fix it? How can you fix it? How can we fix this? And give them the floor. Like, I think that, within the context of narrative medicine, I often think that we look at patients as the patient is the topic, right? Like they're the subject on the table. They're the pie.
Yeah.
And you have everybody around the whole care team, and they're just like looking at the person and talking at the person, not talking to them, but literally talking at them and talking about them around them.
Right.
You have your doctors, you have your nurses, you have your social workers, you have the whole team, right? And the way that I look at it is more so of a patient pies was what I like to think of it, where the patient is not what's like in the middle, the actual problem is in the middle. So the patient isn't the main thing. The patient becomes like a player in this. They also have a role in their care plan. And I bring this up because, the patient often doesn't know what the doctor knows, but the doctor doesn't know what the patient knows either.
Yeah.
And that is key. Like that lived experience, everybody has a piece of this pie. And I want people to recognize that the patient is not like the patient has their own slice in this, in this team of medical Avengers, and they are the experts in lived experience, which nobody else on this, in this team has. So in the context of, learning from, whether it be your employees, whoever's in your flock, right? Whoever you're leading, I think if you recognize that there's a barrier in the break, in the communication, that you need to talk to them and see and give them the floor. Like if you're trying to help them, then you need to, you're working for them, right? Whether you're in a literal sense where you're working for somebody or you just, whether it's your friend or whatever, like if I'm trying to help you, then you're the one with the issue and we're trying to solve this. So let me yield to you a little bit to at least maybe figure out, how we can talk about it. And then I can bring my expertise to the table, my leadership to the table. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that perfectly encapsulate we should be leading with empathy, right? Like we should be leading with empathy, and if you are leading with empathy and including the person, the patient, the client, whomever in the conversations that are about them, right? Then that is going to change the dynamic not only between the two of you or you and the care team, but then also it's going to change the level and quality of care that you're able to provide for them, the resource that you're able to provide. It's like you said, like now they're a part of it, they're sharing their lived experience and you're listening to it, right? And it that has to happen because otherwise it continues to be that same cycle of, well, patient exhibiting this, right? Where I'm the patient. I'm here. Y'all see me. Am I what's that TikTok? Do y'all see me? That little sound? As I see you, right? Like you should see them. You should be including them. Of course, because AI does dominate a lot of conversations. So I don't like to talk about it all that much, but I am very curious to know, in your experience, how AI has really either helped and or hindered your ability to establish or reinforce cultural competency in your field.
So again, the short answer is 0 out of 10. But with the nuance, specifically, all right, with generative AI, I haven't seen the benefit. Just there isn't one. The cultural competency piece, specifically being a Black person, is so nuanced with it. And I'm not even necessarily talking about the damage it's doing to our communities, which is, in my opinion, the biggest issue. But that's another conversation. What I more so mean is just we don't Black people in this country, at least, I mean, around the world, but we talking about America right now, we are struggling and still trying to get respect and all of that. And it's I feel like I saw someone say yesterday that they are talking about AI discrimination and AI racism and things like that. And it's how the AI, that's not a person. It's not a real
Right.
person. And I bring that up because in the context of cultural competency, Black people, people of color, anybody I know that you mentioned, cultural spaces, right? So even within the workplace, right? Within this context, we're already fighting to get to that level, that playing field. And AI throws an even bigger wrench into those things because of just at least generative AI, because of the pure nature of how it moves and how it works, the way that it gathers information and the things that it's spitting out and producing, is just, yeah, I really feel like it's like a roadblock, because people you're taking you're taking money out of people's hands, but you're also taking like people's opportunity to be creative, people's opportunity to tell their stories. Like that's the beauty of storytelling. You hear something from a person, and because it's coming from them, it's theirs, right? And it's funny because you and I could sit here and read the same exact novel, right? Aloud. But your tone and my tone are totally different. And, we're both Southern, so there's like, similarities there, but someone may get something totally different from your way of reading it than me, And those are things that like AI just can't capture. I would say in the grander scheme, I think we have been using AI for a while and we, in ways and we just didn't know it, whether it be, automating systems and, people talking into Siri. I don't like Siri for the record. But
I
I'm
don't have
just saying
theory
that
on.
Siri blows. Because again, why are you listening to me? Like, how do you know just to be ready when I'm ready? Whatever.
Right.
Listen, another conversation. But it's like I do see like the benefits in automating, I don't know, spreadsheets, for instance. Things like that, right? But the thing with it is you still have to double check. And if I have to double check, then I might as well just do it myself. I have no desire to have AI do things for like I love to learn. And why would I want to stop moving that muscle? But yes, I guess again to answer your question, I just don't know if there is a benefit like in the cultural competency sense. There, as far as like I said, numbers and number crunchings, okay, we can do that. But beyond that, for me, it's like a calculator to math, which is like there's only so much you can do with a calculator.
Right.
And there's also a reason why when it was time to take a calculus exam, my professors didn't allow calculators. We could use calculators all through the semester, but when it was exam time, we couldn't use calculators because they wanted to make sure that you knew the information. Calculators are shortcuts, right? I think all of this should be treated the same way. Like it doesn't know things better than you. It just doesn't unless you choose to let it. And if you choose to let it know something better than you, then I just need you to take a step back. And
Right. We all need to take a step back at that
we got
point.
bigger problems here. Like it should
Now
not
that is
know
extended
more.
beyond cultural competency, and we need to have a real conversation. No,
Yeah. So yeah.
and I think you touched on like an important, aspect of the cultural nuance, right? And being able to tell your own story, right? Like if you are a person that is using AI, like you still have to be able to tell your own story. Can it help you like draft it in a format that makes sense? Sure, but you still have to be you're the owner of that story. You're your own storyteller, and so I think it's really important to call out. Okay, so wonderful conversation. Loved it. But we have reached our carte blanche segment. Everybody knows that's my favorite part because it's anything goes. So today we're asking you to share what gives you courage. So this could be courage to pursue your dreams, courage to keep pushing in this world, just courage. What gives you courage?
So I think it's kind of two-parter maybe. All right. So I give myself courage, but hear me out. Hear me out. I mean, it's not even like a toot horn type of thing. So life has been very, very tough. We've been following each other for a while. So like, things about life and for the listeners and the viewers and the watchers, I lost my mom to heart disease when I was 18. And my dad recently passed away in January from dementia. And before, either one of them passed, I was heavy into healthcare because my mom, she had a heart transplant when I was 2 years old. So I was always in and out of the doctor with her. And I guess I'm going to put the two together. It's like seeing her courage, her getting through a heart transplant and, them deciding to adopt me and just seeing my mother live and exist in happiness in spite of all the things that I knew that she had going on at the end of the day. That gives me courage. And also just like, again, life has been no crystal stair. And I look back over the staircase and I realized that it hasn't been a crystal staircase, but I'm still rising. And it's like my ability when I look back over my life and see, oh, I've made it through those things because there's been some tough things. It kind of gives me courage to like keep pushing because I know that like, I hope the hardest is over, good Lord. But if I know that other things are coming that are like tough, but I've made it through what I would say are the two of the arguably hardest things ever. I mean, I lost both of my parents and I still wake up every day and breathe and do things like GeneHouse for my mom and things like that. That gives me courage too. Like the motivation behind why I do what I do also gives me courage to keep doing it because it needs to be done. Simple as that. Needs to be
It
done.
needs to be done. And yes, y'all do not hesitate to take time out of, like Chubby says, like, look over that staircase, look how far you've come, right? Like, appreciate that. Let that wash over you. Be happy about that every day. Yes, it is not, there gonna still be things. It's not over, right? Till it's over, right? But it's such a, to me, it's very much a blessing to like see, like, okay, I did overcome these things, and I'm going to take those lessons that I've learned, I'm going to put in my back pocket, because I know that for the next thing, like, I made it through that one, I'm gonna make it through this too. I am gonna make it. This was beautiful. I loved it.
I know.
And there's so many things that we could talk about. I'm like, wheels are turning, so y'all might see her back for another conversation.
I would love to come back.
But this was so amazing. Thank you again. And thank you all for listening as always. I know you've been hearing, there's so many different conversations about so many different topics. And I appreciate the feedback and the things that y'all have shared, the questions that y'all have sent in. I hope I'm answering all of them. If I miss one, just, send it back to me. Things be happening, y'all, and I forget sometimes. But I will get back to you if there's a question that I missed. But, after this beautiful conversation that we've had, please make sure that you are going over to 𝐂𝐻𝐫, and so you can check out some of those curated vibes, get you through your workday, get you through your workout, what have you. And also keep in mind, you can buy tickets to all those artists that you're listening to over there on StubHub. Right. So make sure that you're hitting StubHub, getting tickets to go see those shows that to your favorite artists, go see some folks live. Fall is the perfect time to get you, a silk press and go to concert. Right. So make sure you do that while the weather is nice. But I am very much looking forward to chatting again with y'all next week on Tuesdays. So we will see you again for more empowering conversations that lead to empowered experiences. Thanks. Bye, y'all.
Questions or comments? Email tcd@blkinstitute.com. And don't forget, check out our curated store at KMOB